Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. We begin in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, where lobster traps, bait, and the lobsters themselves have gone missing. But that won't stop Mikmaw fishermen as they uphold their treaty right to earn a moderate livelihood from harvesting. Angel Moore reports from a Mikmaw lobster boat.
This trap should be full of lobster. Ashton Bernard of the Eskazoni First Nation, harvesting lobster with food, social, and ceremonial tags, believes someone has stolen lobster from it. He's also missing 6 traps, but can't say for sure who is responsible.
Now it's either commercial guys or DFO or even sometimes our own people, so just got to tough it out and keep going.
Sherman Cremo of the Eskazoni First Nation was issued 90 Eskazoni livelihood tags last October. The tags are not DFO regulated, and he has since lost over 250 traps so far, but he remains determined.
We have to fight for our rights, like everyone's fighting down up in Saunaville, and we have our own fight up down here, and so everywhere it's just the same, right? Same. Everyone's losing traps, everyone's losing gear, and it's just not right.
Craig Doucette of the Beaudelec First Nation is harvesting lobster with his band's 90 moderate livelihood tags. He has lost over 150 traps, bait and lobster.
I try to have a positive attitude about everything. It's like I haul a trap up, it's empty. I don't know. I don't want to think negative. I don't want to think another fisherman sabotaged me or whatever. I think, hey, well, you can't catch them all, you know. Let's bait it, put it back. Tomorrow will be a new day.
Doucette has been charged previously for violating the Fisheries Act, but says he will keep fishing.
That's all I could call it, is harassment. I really believe it's just harassment from the corporate bullies of the Canadian government that, you know, they have the funds, they have the resources to, you know, pick on the little guys. Like, this isn't funded by anybody else but myself.
This is St. Peter's Canal, 300 kilometers northeast of Halifax, where Mi'kmaq fishermen from Cape Breton, Woonamagi, and Mi'kmaq dock their boats. On the other side of the canal, non-Indigenous people sit in their vehicles, including Mike Sutherland, a resident of St. Peter's. He disagrees with the Mi'kmaq fishery.
You know, basically, eventually we're going to have nothing here. You know, and these boats aren't even from here. They're from down the lake. So they're taking the food from the other people and make a living at it here. Government's got to get off their arse and start doing something.
Cremo says most people are supportive.
Some won't like us, but the other people, they support us in every possible way, and they're nice people here.
The Mi'kmaq fishermen will continue to treaty fish. Meanwhile, 4 First Nations in southwestern Nova Scotia have an interim understanding with the Department of Fisheries to harvest lobster to earn a moderate livelihood. Angel Moore, APTN National News, St. Peter's, Woonamagi.
The Ontario Provincial Police have charged one of their own with 2 criminal offences. Constable James Clark is charged with obtaining sexual services for consideration and breach of trust. Clark is a 20-year veteran of the OPP. He has spent the last 5 years with the Force's Kenora Detachment. The charges follow a year-long police investigation that was sparked by an APTN Investigates story called In Plain Sight. That was produced by Kenneth Jackson and Cullen Crozier in November of last year. Members from the Samson Cree Nation held a candlelight vigil over the weekend to honor those who passed on from violence, addictions, and suicide, and to give strength for those who are struggling. Here's APTN's Chris Stewart with more.
APTN introduced you to Trina Sousay in September. Her son, Jeremy Sousay, was shot and killed at a convenience store on the Reserve. The community suffers from gang violence and shootings. Chief Vernon Saddleback says addictions to methamphetamine is a big part of the problem. This past Saturday, Trina Sousay organized a candlelight vigil to honor those who have died and to give strength to those still struggling.
Why I did this event was a lot of people are grieving right now. And a lot of them, for me, the biggest part was prayer. Prayer and acknowledgement of those that we lost and those that are grieving.
Agatha Eaglechief came from Saskatoon to attend. Her son, Austin Eaglechief, died in a police chase in 2017. She says she was told by family not to walk in Samson alone. It was too dangerous.
They told me, like, don't go around there. You'll get shot if you're walking around or whatever. And I got scared. So I thought, you know what? I have to beat my fear. So I went to go drive Samson, and with all those boarded houses and what's going on, it's like Trina said, we all need prayers. We have to start praying for our people.
Prayers were given and spirits were uplifted.
Because we had a moment, Trina and I, and with conversation, you know, to put our sons and the prayers in two different, in how we pray. I felt like the love there because, you know, our sons were there in spirit.
Trina Sousay is hoping the violence stops, so no more members have to suffer.
There's just no more time to waste. We got to help our people. We got to pray for our people now.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
It's supposed to be a safe place for children to learn and thrive, but according to one Yukon First Nation, the local school is anything but. As Sarah Connors tells us, the First Nation is tired of Band-Aid solutions, and they're asking for a permanent fix once and for all.
This top window came crashing down with a big wind.
2017 or so?
Oh, 2017, around there. And lucky no kids were in here because there's huge chunks of glass came falling down.
This window at the Ross River School in Ross River, Yukon is a safety concern for former principal Fran Etzel. Contractors have since put plastic film covering the windows to prevent glass from falling on anyone below if there's another storm. It's just one of the many issues plaguing the school that's only 22 years old. There's cracks in the wall.
You see the cracks and you get worried, like, how safe is the school?
Jammed doors.
You look at that. And it's stuck.
And ongoing construction as the school is being re-leveled.
You know, it's unfortunate and something that definitely brings me concern. It's a great learning space and learning environment, right? It's got
Paul McFadden is the school's principal. He trusts the territorial government's engineers that the school is safe enough to operate, but is worried about the longevity of the building.
You know, the school's been in this situation now for many years. And, you know, there isn't a definitive plan to replace. It's more of an ongoing kind of re-leveling and propping up of the building.
McFadden says the school's current re-leveling project was supposed to finish before the school year started. Now, he says that timeline has been pushed to the summer of 2023.
The construction is already taken place and now is left kind of exposed, and it's not ideal.
I got a call late at night saying get out of the school. And we got out of the school, and then next couple of days that you can go back in.
It's an issue Etzel knows well.
There's cracking pretty well everywhere.
She says the stress of dealing with the building impacted her mental health.
That's one of the reasons I stayed on so long as a principal, but this year it's Paul, is just keeping an eye on the children, keeping an eye on the building, making sure we're safe.
Etzel says things came to a head a few years ago when structural issues caused the school to temporarily close and students were taught in portable trailers.
An engineer came, and just the look on his face, I knew that it wasn't good and we had to leave the school.
It's kind of concerning.
Dylan Loblaw is the chief of the Ross River Denna Council. He says the school is sitting over permafrost and wants Yukon government to stop investing in Band-Aid fixes.
Right now, we're being pushed aside, and we're hearing from the Yukon government that they'll come see us on their time.
He says there's also no sense fixing a school on faulty ground.
We do want a new school for our children and our future
Highways and Public Works and the Department of Education said in a statement to APTN they're taking the health and safety of students seriously. The departments noted the school is rigorously assessed 4 times a year and that it's kept safe by mitigating the effects of structural movement through upgrades like the releveling system and by performing repairs to mitigate the effects of building movement. The Department of Education said it would also work with the Ross River Dinna Council to ensure the school meets the short and long-term needs of the community. As construction continues, McFadden says what matters most is that the school's children feel safe and happy.
We're talking about our most precious resource that we have, and it's our children. When there's even a slight if, that's enough, to bring a real concern from parents and community.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Ross River.
Camera gear frozen in time for the past 85 years has been recovered in the Yukon. That story and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. A stockpile of historic camera equipment and mountaineering gear has been retrieved from a glacier located on First Nations territory in the Yukon. While many are celebrating the historic find, the First Nation in question says it's important to remember it was their members who helped save the mountaineering expedition from death. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
It's a discovery 85 years in the making. This camera and mountaineering equipment was abandoned by famed mountaineers Bradford Washburn and Robert Bates in 1937 after they ran into bad weather. Washburn in particular was an internationally renowned cartographer and aerial photographer.
It's a great story. It's a great story from, 1937.
Bob Dixon is the chief of Kluane First Nation. He says the Kluane people in the community of Burwash Landing, including his grandfather Sam Johnson, helped the men to safety after they abandoned their expedition.
God went up there and helped them come out, fed them, and then got them across the river and on their way back to Burwash.
In August, outdoor exploration company Teton Gravity Research led the expedition to retrieve the cache on a remote glacier in the Kluane National Park and Reserve. With help from the First Nation, the team found several relics like a portion of Washburn's Fairchild 8 aerial camera and 2 motion picture cameras. Scientists say the new find will help unlock new information on glacier velocity and thickness. Meanwhile, Dixon says it's important to recognize the Kluane people who were instrumental in helping the explorers with the expedition and their survival.
There hasn't been a lot of recognition of what our people contribute to researchers in this area, and I think that's the part that's missing, is that the traditional knowledge that our people had in this area that helped them survive, coming out of this area.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
And making movies is a passion that gets many involved in a lifetime of creativity, sharing stories, and starting conversations. And that is what a group of Indigenous youth got exposed to in the community of Ganawage, just south of Montreal, as the Maoriland Film Festival held a workshop called Through Our Lens there. Jeff Dorn tells us that this is a first for the workshop in North America, but judging by the results, it won't be the last.
Just pull it out right at the very last second, I guess.
Jarrett Jacobs is an aspiring filmmaker, directing an intense action scene. Adrenaline-filled moments like this require the right take. Jarrett and his team are doing it all.
Not a lot of time to get things done, so it's important to try to get things the right way the first time, I guess. So it's a little bit stressful, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. We might as well just do it more time.
Ganawage filmmaker Courtney Montour is behind this film. These are workshops aimed at getting Indigenous youth immersed in creating stories, sharing ideas, and discovering the passion that drew her to the profession.
Youth that are taking this 2-day workshop don't need to have any experience. They're coming in over the 2 days, they're learning, storyboarding, editing, camera. Like, it could be all brand new to them.
Oh, my dad cried at in the cinema. Yeah. My mom tells me that story all the time, how he's just weeping through the phone.
To get to this moment, it has been a 3-year collaboration between Courtney and the Maori Land Film Festival. Through the Lens is a project funded by the Canada Council for the Arts and supported by the Ganawagi community, providing workspace and screening equipment.
About 20 minutes to come up with a film idea.
This is the first through our Lens partnership in North America, the 9th of 9 workshops for Indigenous communities in New Zealand, the Pacific, Taiwan, and Finland.
We started this project in 2017. We were actually supposed to first come to Ganawagi in April 2020, and, it didn't work out.
Madeline Hakaraya de Young is the Maori Land programmer. She's heading this project because she knows their voice matters.
This is an opportunity for us to connect with other Indigenous young people all over the world.
For 10 years, the Maori Land Film Festival has celebrated Indigenous cinema. The genre is a growing passion within the film world.
Film is a universal language. It is a way that we can share who we are and our stories with a wide audience. And it also allows us to see ourselves in a way that we don't necessarily get to see when we're actually practicing our culture.
Each of these professionals guiding these workshops have already broken down barriers, but according to them, they are only getting started.
We need to have more of our Indigenous people in all levels of the industry. And even if they're not going in the industry, this storytelling is a part of their community and daily lives. It's something that can support and benefit, all of the work they're doing.
I'd rather be.
Brooke Rice is a graduate. She's now our producer trainee.
Just so you know which order.
Hoping to ignite the same spark that got her hooked on film.
It's just who we are. We're storytellers. We like to share. We like to exchange our cultures. Building relationships. We're weaving our network. We're expanding our bundle of knowledge.
As Brooke did, these fledgling filmmakers are making their first short film.
Passion and love relate to film because it's just our stories. And in Ganyagaha, we call it Odzirde, which means fire, spark, and the word for family is Akwadirde. So really everything we do is about that fire, our central fire, our responsibilities. So no matter what, we'll always be attached to our family, our culture, our language, and it'll just show through our storytelling.
Jared and his group are going for one more take. Getting that perfect shot is key to scaring their audience.
I think representation does matter, and it's just really nice that Indigenous people have an outlet to make films that they want to make, and with messages and things that they want to see on screen and not have to depend on anybody else to make it for them.
Jared and his team have finished their film titled Wannabe. For these filmmakers, the future is bright. They already have an audience for their first works. The Maori Land Film Festival will showcase their films next spring in New Zealand at the 2023 festival.
I think a measurement of success from this workshop will be that everybody is inspired to go home and not only make their own film, tell their own story, but to also encourage their own communities of young people to tell their own stories.
Jeff Dorn, APTN National News, Ganawagi, Mohawk Territory.
So should I look behind? A First Nations artist from the Yukon is up for one of the most prestigious awards in the country. That story and more still to come after the break. Welcome back. A First Nations artist from the Yukon is one of 5 finalists for this year's prestigious Sobe Art Award. Crystal Silverfox is already guaranteed $25,000 for making it this far. And if she wins, she will get $100,000. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Earlier this week, Silverfox could barely hide her enthusiasm. She'd been selected for the Sobe short list.
Oh, it's surreal. I can't believe that I made it this far. I am so thrilled. I grew up in Vancouver. I live in the Yukon, so I could not be more thrilled to represent the West Coast Yukon, and it's just so touching to be here.
Silverfox's work tends to focus on the theme of decolonization, often using materials such as copper and Hudson Bay blankets. 3 of her most recent works, All That Glitters Is Not Gold, Copper and Concrete, and Landmarks, are currently on display at the National Gallery of Canada in Ottawa. And as Gallery Associate Curator Wasantillo Cross points out, the interdisciplinary artist's work is gaining notice.
To take something that is valuable in that way and then to turn it into something that is a commodity, you know, with the pennies as well, and they have the stamp of the Queen's head, so it's so rich when you really look into the materials that are used.
Silver Fox explains the importance of copper in her work.
So we would actually use copper to trade with the Tlingit people, and they would actually create copper shields, knives, all sorts of different tools. We also made copper knives and such, but it's not as, I guess, documented as the Tlingit people.
And the Hudson Bay blanket.
The Hudson's Bay blanket also has this unfortunate history of spreading disease. So I'm thinking a lot about the Hudson's Bay blanket as a colonial tool that I rip apart as an act of decolonization. But also I'm thinking about the act as like reflecting back to my identity as a Northern Tachoni woman.
And her advice for young and aspiring Indigenous artists?
I say use anything and everything to make your art. If it's garbage, so be it. You know, our objects around us say so much about our worlds and our experiences, and don't give up on it.
The Sobe Art Award winner will be announced on November 16th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
An Indigenous healing garden opened at a health centre in Truro, Nova Scotia. It's the first of its kind in Atlantic Canada. It's dedicated to Sheila Glode of the Millbrook First Nation, a dialysis patient who died in 2013. The garden honors other community members who have died from kidney disease. It features traditional Indigenous symbols and plants used in ceremony. There's artwork designed by Mikmaw artists and an educational space to learn about traditional Indigenous healthcare. Chief Bob Glode of the Millbrook First Nation says the park builds a path towards reconciliation.
You look at the 4 sacred colors, represents all races. You look at the circle, we're all equal. You look at the dream catcher, what that symbolizes, and the unity it represents, and it's meant to be there for a purpose, for healing, for everyone, not just Indigenous people, but for all races, all societies. And
a nice honor. Well, that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this weekend. For more on these stories or anything else you see here, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks so much for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.